Good morning, everybody. It's Steve. We're here for the Diploma in Education and Training. We're going to look at Module 1. So today, we're going to look at some of the new resources that we've uploaded. So you can have a look at the PowerPoint presentations for the session. So you've got extended reading there. We've created some training manuals or course books. So they're there for you to have a look at. And we're going to look at some of the material and just run through that, just so you've got a really good understanding about what's in Unit 1 and what you need to do to prepare to pass this unit. Equally, some of you want to achieve this in a timely manner. So maintaining the progress on a weekly basis is going to be really important because there's a lot for us to get through. Lovely. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share screen 1 and we are here. So this should now be looking very familiar to you. Thank you to those that have already started to upload evidence. Hopefully you've seen it's quite easy and the feedback is relatively quite straightforward. It roughly takes about 5 weeks. 5 weeks doesn't take 5 weeks at all. It roughly takes about 5 days for me to give feedback sometimes, and that's just because of the volume of feedback that I need to give. Sometimes I can do it straight away. Sometimes it may take up to 5 days. So don't panic if you don't get your feedback immediately. Anyway, last week in the introduction, we went through some of this. Things that I've added since last week, I added study skills. So if you've never studied before, there are some study skills about writing at level 5, making sure that you're meeting those verbs. I also added the course library. So you'll see here, this is Unit 1. Ideally, we want to be running through this within the next couple of weeks, just to make sure that we're fully aware of everything. And I reckon it'll probably take 2 or 3 weeks to run through all of this. Again, there's your PowerPoints. So if you click on that, I'm jumping a bit. If you click on that, you'll see you've got a download. So you can just read that. That's entirely up to you how you read that. And then as we go back, you've then got the presentations to run through as well. So if we click on there, there we go. And all you're going to do when you start on that, just click your next button. I think it's down here for you guys when you watch those. Lovely. So they're the additional resources for the module, because on top of all of that, you've then got the actual module itself. So let's collapse that one and that one. Just to remind you, 100 hours, you do need to log in to my CPD. We did discuss this last week, so make sure you log in to here. So go to set up an account. So I don't know if I've set one up yet for me. No, so let's just sign up. So we'll show you how easy it is. All you're going to do is just create your password. It's actually, you know how to do this. You're training to be teachers. There we go. A little bit about yourself. So I like just to autofill everything in. Just put. Number of CPD hours per year I need to do for both teaching and nursing is about 100. And my revalidation date is March 24. So that's when my revalidation for my nursing comes up. Complete. Right, there you go. So I've now created my free CPD portal. All I'm going to do is log a new CPD. So here I'm just going to add what the CPD is that I've done. I'm going to add the type of CPD. So again, event, lecture, training course, teaching videos. Now for you, you are delivering. So this is as you being the teacher, not you being the learner. Just mind that. So whether that's the type of learning that you or the teaching that you have done, what you did and what you hoped. And then again, you're not going to be uploading a CPD certificate here because it's not your course, but you might upload your attendance register. You might upload evidence that you taught that session. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now, obviously, once you've completed this, by all means, use this for your own CPD, because this is absolutely great evidence for EVs. It's great evidence for Ofsted. It's great evidence for CQC. You know, you name it, it's great evidence for those people. So log in your CPD, and then in your profile, there's a dashboard that then happens. And in your dashboard, it then starts to log all the hours. So you'll then see a breakdown of just the type of teacher you are and the type of learning that you're doing. So hopefully you love that. It's free of charge. It doesn't cost anything. So it's my favorite fee, which is free. Great. So that's then logging your teaching hours. So remember, has to be a blended amount of 100 hours. Oh, look, I have put that there. There's the link to it. Okay, lovely. And then there's the 8 hours of observations. So here, I've given you a link to Anne Gravel. You know, ultimately, she is one of the leading experts in this area. So she's given you lots of tips and tricks about your OTLAs, your observations to teach and learning. I've given you the link to the book in which I need you to buy to help you through these modules as well. It's entirely up to you. I mean, ultimately, you don't have to buy it, but there are other things. And then obviously you've got your checklist. So this is my assessment tool. So you know what you're being graded against. It's like the Rubik, really. You know what's happening there. And then obviously we're just going to upload those videos there. So we would start the assignment. And then what would happen is you can either use your webcam and record your session. Fine, that records live there, or you can upload. Now, I've got a feeling that that may be an hour session to be too big to upload. However, what we could do there is you could save it in your Google Drive, your G Drive, or Dropbox. So you just give me a link to that video, so we're not using all of this stuff, because I think uploading those could be quite big. I don't really mind how I get it. We can discuss that on a one-to-one when we do it. Lovely. So that's then the observation bits. So we're going to leave that because I need to. Okay. Excuse me. And then finally, here we are. We're now at Unit 1, Teaching, Learning, Assessment and Education Training. If you've done the Assessors Award, you'll have done Understanding Principles and Practice of Assessment. If you've done the IQA Award, Understanding Internal Quality Assurance. If you've done the EQA Award, by any chance, it'll be the same thing, Understanding External Quality Assurance. And so that's needless to say, in teaching and learning, it's going to be Understanding Teaching, Learning, Assessment and Education Training. And we do actually do a very similar unit to this in the Awards and Education Training. So at the Stage 1, Level 3. So it's not an unfamiliar module. So let's click here and let's run through this. So here, understanding roles, responsibilities in education and training. Here we need to look at your roles and responsibilities within your organisation and your sector, because there's two things going on here. You've got your FE sector, so your private independent training provider or whatever your sector may be. And then you've got your own regulatory responsibilities. So if you're doing, for example, digital standards, who regulates you? Where are your standards coming from? And then for health and social care, who regulates you? Where are your standards come from? So for example, skills for care, skills for health. But within your answer here, so because this is level 5, we're looking for a summary of your roles and responsibilities. And then we're looking for that very clear framework, that model, that theory, if you like. So A really good answer for every part of your knowledge requirements here is a basic answer that you can link back to practice, and then a theoretical framework model or theory. So what we're looking at here is your roles, your learner-centered approach, recognizing how you put the learner at the center of everything you do. You're looking at your inclusion, your diversity, how you collaborate, your quality assurance, because again, quality assurance, there are different processes of quality assurance now. God love the standards, because in the diploma, you will have quality assurance through off-qual, which is the IQA process, EQA process through an awarding organisation, which is regulated under the RQF framework, the Regulatory Qualification Framework. And then you've got quality assurance through the Institute of Apprenticeships. Now, arguably, some of the standards do not have on-programme requirements. So if they do not have an on-programme requirement and it's formal teaching and learning, then what are you quality assuring and how are you quality assuring that? So if you've got bite-sized learning to track progress, are you quality assuring that? And if you're not quality assuring that, why aren't you quality assuring that? What processes are you going to be putting in place for that? Because ultimately, whilst the standards don't require you to make an assessment decision, because it's not like an RQF qualification, it's not like competent, not yet competent, you are still making some kind of statement against learning. So I believe this person now understands this standard, for example, because it's not like that's the assessment method. The assessment method is in the assessment plan, which is assessed at the end. Hopefully I'm making sense. I'm not waffling or confusing anyone. But that's if you deliver the standards. So if you deliver apprenticeship standards, just be mindful that they are different in the way in which they are quality assured. So yeah, make sure that you've got your IQA strategy, make sure it's clear. And again, different IQA processes, different qualification structures. You might have a different process for your T levels, you might have a different process for functional skills, a different process for your RQF. So just be mindful about that. Adaptability, so looking at how you're evolving or continual quality improvement, changing, meeting those changes and needs, and then overall leadership management, so your overall responsibility for understanding how to lead teams and strategic decisions. So when you write this, you are writing it in the third person. So you're not writing it in the first, but you're kind of explaining roles and responsibilities within your sector and within your skill sector. So you're looking at the roles and responsibilities in relation to education and training for you within where you are currently working, but your roles and responsibilities as well within your sector to tie the two together, because your knowledge of teaching or your subject knowledge of teaching comes from your subject specialist area. So just be mindful that you need to cover those two parts. And obviously, when you do your research, make sure you tie in at least a theory, a framework, or a model. So again, if you look at Anne Gravel, she gives you some kind of framework. So it's worthwhile just thinking about some of those that you're going to tie into that answer. You then need to analyse your own roles and responsibilities in education and training. So here, understand your position, identify your responsibilities, objectives, adhere to ethical standards and professional standards. So this is your code of practice that you'll need to quote within that answer. So for example, if you're from health and social care, you will quote the ethical standards from Skills for Care. If you're from IT or the digital industry, you need to quote your professional regulatory standards. If you're leadership and you're a member of ILM, or you're a member, sorry, it's not ILM anymore, IL, Institute for Leadership. I don't know what the last part is, but they dropped the M. Or the Charter of Institute for Leadership and Management, you're going to quote them. If you're a nurse, you quote your RM, your NMC standards. Couldn't think. So just be mindful that that's what you're talking about. If you want to quote other professional standards, feel free. But equally, in respect to your teaching standards, you need to be looking at the Society of Education and Training. So just go online, have a look at the Society of Education and Training, look at their code of practice and their professional standards. And what you might be able to do is do a bit of synergy between the two. You might be able to find, you know, the Society of Education say this, my standards say this. Actually, they're both saying the same thing. Generally, they do, you know, in my experience for everything that I've read over the years. That's that. Adapting to learner needs. So that, if you're going to be quoting that and you're going to be meet, well, you have to quote that. It's part of your roles and responsibilities. But what we're going to need to see, though, is you're quoting the Education Inspection Framework. And in the first, I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head, first 15 pages, the very first chapter of the inspection handbook, it talks about SEN. It talks about how are you going to meet those diverse needs of individuals and how do you adapt? What is your differentiation? How do you accommodate for all of this? And when you look at a lot of failed inspection reports, a lot of it looks at not meeting individual needs, not understanding differentiation, not having, you know, having people left behind, so they're not moving at the same speed and progress. All of this is about adapting the needs. And you can only really adapt needs when you understand different learning styles, different teaching styles, different resource styles, and adapt to meet those needs. And the problem with that is it creates a lot for us as the teacher, because it's almost impossible for us to have all of this, not necessarily knowledge, but all of this skill set around doing the same thing 15 different ways because of our barriers. So what we need to be doing isn't necessarily changing our methods, but looking at how we can work smart and not hard. So, for example, what I've done in here, you've got your books that you can download. Great. Well, that doesn't take long to produce those. You've got your PowerPoints if you like to dive deep and follow theoretical stuff. Great. If you're a visual learner, we've got the videos. Great. You know, if you're an independent learner, it's all here. If you're not an independent learner, you like to follow instruction, it's in these videos, it's on here. So just think about when you're adapting to learners' needs, just putting them at the center and just thinking about, does my curriculum, is what I'm teaching and learning, does that meet your needs? So again, if you are neurodivergent, have you assessed those needs? Have you managed to do a referral? Nobody at all is suggesting you have to diagnose people, but you should be picking up ADHD. You should be picking up dyslexia. You should be picking up things like dyspraxia. You should easily be picking up things like ASD and autism. You should be picking up, you know, behavioral issues. You should be picking up mental health issues. That's adapting to the learners. Understand them all. And if you're doing your IAG, your information, advice and guidance, then you should be able to do that referral piece. So where are you referring people to? So, you know, in every single county in the United Kingdom, we have IAP services that we can refer somebody to for mental health. People can refer themselves. It's a self-referral thing. Great. In your plan, you could write, you know, I've noticed that it's, well, use me for example. I've noticed Steve's looking a bit more, Steve's been struggling. He's not been able to meet his deadlines. I've had a chat with him. He's told me that he's feeling quite low in mood. We've talked about him going to the GP. We've also talked about other free resources that are there, such as the IAP services. Great. That's evidence of you really meeting those needs and understanding the background of that learner and working within their abilities. You know, a reasonable adjustment at this time is, because Steve has disclosed to me he's depressed, we've looked at extending this by 25% or whatever, it's doing our reasonable adjustments. So they're the kind of things we're looking at adapting with the learner, because if we can move with the learner, if we understand what the learner is going through, if we understand how to meet those learner needs, you're not going to get the dropout. And I would suggest or debate or argue here, the reason health and social care has such a massive incompletion rate and such a big non-achievement for their function, for their apprenticeship standards, is because a lot of people that work in social care have such diverse needs. They burn out within 18 months. Well, the program's now 2 years. So unless we recognise signs of burnout, signs of mental health, signs of deterioration, signs of non-engagement, of course you're going to lose that learner, because they're already fatigued within their own role, and this is a duty on top of their normal role. So your pastoral care, your support and student welfare needs to be far greater than probably other sectors. So bear that in mind. What are your strategies there? Because it's your responsibility at the end of the day. When you read the Education Spectrum Framework and you read that first whole chunk about meeting needs and evidence needs, who do you go to? Who is your specialist? Where's your support coming from? Again, thinking about collaboration and communication. You've got self-development. So again, you've got your CPD tracking there. But where do you go? You know, Society of Education do loads of free stuff for teaching. Education Foundation has loads of free stuff for teaching, things around prevent, British values, safeguarding, all of that stuff. And then you've got your own sector stuff. And remember, you've got to maintain 2 sets of skills here. You're a dual professional, maybe a triple professional. But for every standard that you're in, for every foot that you're teaching a different skill set, you have to evidence that you're maintaining that sector as well as your own teaching sector. Your continuous quality improvement cycle. So again, how are you going to evidence that you are maintaining your CPD, your continual quality improvement, your driving forward? So in your My CPD that you've now set up, in there, you can look at your own self-reflection. So you could just add a CPD log and just, you know, say, in here, I recognise, so rather than doing it as a teaching event, you could do it as a taught reflection event. So I taught this session today and I had behaviour in the class, and what I learned from that was that I was ill-equipped, or what I learned was I need to know more about managing this, or what it did was it highlighted the risk of lone working. Or what I learned was if 2 students are fighting and I'm on my own, how do I de-escalate that and how do I keep others safe? So it's that kind of thing. So after your teaching and learning sessions, you should be showing some kind of reflective practice at the end of that. And reflective practice is obviously really important. And as we go through this, you'll be seeing things like Gibbs and Ralph and all of that lot. And then obviously regulatory requirements. So 2 lots of regulatory requirements. You've got your Ofsted and then your normal sector stuff. You need to summarise key aspects of legislation. Don't list them all please don't list them all. We just haven't got time. Just pick a couple that shows a strong understanding. So again, on here, you can see we've listed some around legislation around the Equality Act or the Education Act. And again, the Education Act is really interesting to read. I don't know if any of you have ever read it, but it states that every child is entitled to an education, but it doesn't actually state where that education is or what that education looks like. And that's why we have such a disparity across our country. Looking at regulatory stuff, health and safety, data protection, safeguard, or again, qualification framework, so Ofqual being your regulator there, that's fine, all different kinds of practice. So I would just maybe pick there, summarise one of each of those. You don't have to pick what's on the screen, pick what's relevant to you and what you know about. But again, always pick one, go into a bit of detail. This is level 5 after all. So you need to analyse the relationships and boundaries between the teaching role. So again here, and other professionals. So you're looking at your role And then when we talk about other professionals, we're talking about that refer-on piece we just talked about earlier. So it may be welfare support, it may be social services, you've got educational care plans, it may be doctors that you're referring people to, it may be police, it may be social services, whoever you're working with and those other professionals. But look about how you can work together, how you can collaborate, how you can support each other within this role. So if you do have a learner that is disruptive, or even let's say we've done our interview, we've got our PLR on somebody, and we've noticed this person has started education several times but never completed, there is your red flag to go, I'm probably not going to be any different. So why then? Why has that person failed so many times? I bet they say things like, oh, it was always my assessor, it was never my fault, I never was supported, this, or this. That then tells you you're managing a high-risk learner. And with that high-risk learner, what support are you going to wrap around them to make sure that they are progressing well? Because ultimately, you don't necessarily have the resources within your organisation, but within third-party organisations, you might. So you might say to them, look, I can see that there's a lot going on here. You've disclosed whatever you've disclosed to me, and let's now problem solve some of that together. So do you need more support from maybe your mental health team? Do you need more support from your social worker? Do you need more support from? And then trying to wrap that support around them to A, to keep them in employment, but B, to help them through the education process. And here you can see different strategies there. And I have to say, when I was a frontline nurse, so when I was working in a GP surgery, as a mental health practitioner, I had a lot of conversations with a lot of teachers. And it was actually really enjoyable because being a teacher myself and being a nurse, I was able to see it from both sides of the fence. And I used to say to them, why do you think this particular learner is behaving like that? Why do you think you're dealing, what do you think you're dealing with? And they couldn't get their heads around the complex of mental health or ill health. And like I said to them, but if this person's diabetic, for example, and it's soaring towards lunchtime and they've not had their lunch, are they showing signs that they're going high or low in blood sugar? They're not becoming aggressive. It's just that drop in blood sugar. So looking at those learners at risk isn't about just saying we've got a potential learner at risk, but really looking at the strategies with other professionals to support. And that could be other therapists, that could be working with SEN, or your ALN support team. So, if you've identified somebody that talks quite quickly in class, flights of ideas, bit poor focus, quite easily distracted, you find it difficult to keep up with them. They lose things all the time, they're slightly disorganized, you're constantly having to remind them. It's probably ADHD. If you've got somebody that likes to talk more, present more, doesn't like to do all the written stuff, shies away from reading, then, slightly bit clumsy as well. So normally they might bump into things a bit, or at least they're a bit more accident prone than others. There's a high chance that maybe they're living with dyslexia. So those neurodivergence, understanding neurodivergence will give you a really good idea about then how to work with other professionals to develop your teaching and learning plans, because it's ridiculous to think that anyone with a neurodivergent is going to go through teaching and learning in the same way as an atypical student brain. Doesn't mean they can't. It's got nothing to do with intellectual disability. It's got nothing to do with the fact they can't progress. In fact, they probably will. You just need to find their lane. And I say that because myself being neurodivergent, so I'm dyslexic, I have ADHD, it has nothing to do with my ability to learn. Actually, it goes the other way. it means we hyper-focus. It means we can take in a huge amount of data. We have to find our lane to feel comfortable in it, to fixate, to move forward. Have you done that? Now, ultimately, if they're in a job, we'd like to think that's their hyper-focus bit, if they're enjoying it. If they're not enjoying their job, you're going to really struggle here. So there's lots of different strategies and things that you can do to maintain that learner, to keep them engaged, to keep them thriving. You just need to work with other professionals, be open to collaboration, and get consent from them as well. So get consent to open with them. And what I would say is any condition that your learner has, so be it a physical health condition, be it a mental health condition, be it a neurodivergent, there are charities and organisations for every single thing out there. If you are not sure as a teacher how to manage that, just drop them an email and say, look, I've got a student, what strategies could you give me? And they will, organisations are so happy when teachers engage with them. And for an Ofsted point of view, you are going to win there. Anyway, I digress. There we go. So here, we're then looking at those points of referrals. We've been talking about that just a second ago. And then we can look at where we're going to refer them to. So SEN, I have a problem. I do have a problem with SEN. I have a problem with the word special. So additional educational needs, fine. Try and avoid the word special. It's quite degrading. It means special. You know, by all means, people can have educational needs. We can have additional needs. We don't have special needs. So if we can think about the language that we use, which is more inclusive around that, by all means. And again, the word special can actually be a barrier for people because some people don't want to be recognised in that lane, because when we think about that, we think about intellectual disability rather than neurodivergence. Educational psychologists, well, good luck in getting those. But you could refer, so if they're up to the age of 18, you could refer to CAMS, Children's and Mental Health Services, so you could do that referral there. Alternatively, there are lots of organisations out there that do free things. So, for example, where I live, we have a thing called Counselling Plus. It's free, people can attend. So again, providing them support there is really useful. And referral to the SALT team, speech and language therapy. So if you've got somebody, you're working with them, you can see that maybe their language or their linguistic skills are slightly delayed. You can obviously talk to the GP, do referrals there and do that. Occupational therapists. So again, if you look at your local borough, you need to go to your foundation trust, your NHS foundation trust. Just type in speech and language or occupational therapist and you will see referral points and what you need to do to refer somebody. Medical professionals, most doctor surgeries will be quite happy for you to drop them an email. If you know the doctor surgery of your learner, you can go online, find their email, just drop them an email to say, look, I'm their teacher, I'm slightly concerned about X, Y, Z. But obviously make sure you've got that consent piece going on there. Learning support services. So again, lots of different things there. Within your own organisation, do you have a learning support service? And that learning support service might just be something that's got IAG, ideally, because you'll have matrix, right? And in that IAG, maybe you'll have things about support in essay writing, support in claiming additional benefits. Maybe you'll have learner support there for points of referral. Maybe that learner support service, you've got something that can't focus because maybe they've got some home problems. Because let's not forget, at the end of the day, these learners are human beings. They've got their social life, their home life, they've got their work life, and then they've got their study. And you, my friends, we are we're the bottom priority of their food chain. So if they are being made homeless or if they can't pay their bills, for them, if we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they're never going to go anywhere near where they need to be to focus because their basic foundations aren't being met. So again, we could become social prescribers. There's no rule that says in education you can't have a social prescriber. So social prescribing is problem solving with somebody, sitting them down going, look, what's going on here? Oh, I've got a housing problem. Right. Why do you have a housing problem? Let's do root cause analysis. Why do you have a housing problem? Oh, I have a housing problem because I can't afford my bills. Right. Why can't you afford your bills? I'm an apprentice, duh. Okay. Let's have a look at that. So did you know that you can get 25% discount, or there's discount across council tax? Would that help? Have you got access to food banks? Have you had a review of any entitlements or additional stuff? Let's do a referral to some charities and organisations like Turn to You. There's loads of different things out there in which you can simply signpost. The other one that I particularly love, there's a website called Hub of Hope. And in the Hub of Hope, you can just put your postcode in. Everything that that person could ever want or need will come to them. It's the first UK database for support services. So Hub of Hope, pop that in there. And you're going to have lots, your learner support's going to look great. And let's not forget, it's about retention. So I hear what you're saying to me, Steve. You're going, Steve, we've barely got time to be a teacher. And now we're a counsellor, a therapist, a medical professional. You want us to do all this referral stuff. It all takes seconds to do, but it will keep your learner. So your retention rate will drop. I guarantee it. If you introduce all of these services and that learner feels held by you, because you have the same rights under the Offset, under the Education Act as schools. You have the same duty of care to keep people safe. So it's important that you have this network around you on how you can do that. It's not just a case that you're going in teaching curriculum. Looking at those external organisations, so again, there may be things out there. There are lots of organisations to help people in different ways. Social services, maybe you need to do a referral there. Maybe you need to, just say, look, it's this is a single mum. She's working. She's trying to earn and learn. She needs a bit more support to stay in on this programme. And with that support, it'll change her future in the long term. So a bit of support now, and that might be things around, I don't know, school vouchers, whatever it is. But you don't know unless you ask. And the problem is people go, oh, there's no point asking. Well, actually, you'll be surprised the amount of things that people can do if they can see an outcome. Because ultimately, nobody wants to agree something if it's not about keeping people in employment or in education. And then again, technology. Now, there is absolutely no excuse at all for people not to thrive in education. Just none. I cannot think of, well, one excuse. Okay, I have one excuse, which is I don't have a phone. That would be my only excuse that I can accept. Because ultimately now, when we think about accessibility, we talk about digital poverty. I would probably suggest, I don't know the statistics, those that want to go ahead and have a look, that'd be great. But I would probably suggest about 95% of people have mobile phones that have internet access now. We know that there's lots of free Wi-Fi spots. So you know what? Nobody wants to do it. But if that's what you have to do to thrive and strive, then that's what you have to do. No, actually, I'm going to take away the mobile phone. That's not an excuse, because you can go to a library and they have free open sessions. So scrap that, not even accepting that as an excuse. So if we've got digital poverty, we can go to the library with free access. If we've got equipment, and let's face it, even from your teaching and learning support, providing somebody with an Android, which is what, 25, 30 pounds now, you overcome this barrier, they're able to engage, great. Then your next barrier is, which I hear a lot, oh, but my learners don't like going online. Bad luck. You are now in the fourth revolution of digital and AI technology. If you do not go online, if we are not teaching digital skills alongside our apprenticeships, we are failing our learners, because for them to think independently, get the right resources, be able to become independent, stand on their own 2 feet, they've got to learn digital skills. It's a given. It was in FE Week the other week, FE Weekly, that Ofsted are going to focus on this. So we know it's coming in. We know it's going to be a basic thing that if we're not doing, we're going to be marked down on it. So think about your digital strategies now. When you join the Society of Education Training, they're on it. They're all over it. They've got policies, they've got strategies. My Intuition magazine that you get, which you can go and have a look at, it's got a whole section on AI and now using technology. There is technology there that will help you structure your essays. There is technology on there that will help you look for your reading resources list. There's technology there that will create PowerPoints, workbooks, handouts. It's all there. We just need to move with it. It is time to move with it. And if we can empower our learners in the same way, it's definitely that old phrase, isn't it? You know, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Give him a fishing rod, you feed him for life. We, as teachers, have a duty to ensure we are keeping our digital skills up, so we're able to translate that across everything that we do. And we need to be using that in classes. We need to be saying in classes, don't put your phones away because you're hiding them under the desk anyway. Put your phones on the desk. Great. I want you to use your phones. I want them in my classroom. Those that have ever seen a session of mine, I'm like, get your phones out now. While I'm talking to you, if you think I've said something that's not quite right, stick your hand up and then I'll get you all to research it, you know, because that's how we learn. That's how you find information. That's how we progress. I'm not afraid as a teacher if I get something wrong. What I want to be able to do is show people that we're able to, that we're all humans because we need to normalize those behaviors, but we also need to encourage this creativity. And again, there's loads of different technologies in there where you can do surveys on apps and God knows what else while you're teaching. So, but we'll cover that later on. So just think about that, how you're going to do that. So Unit 1 then, Learning 1. You need to develop an essay or an outcome that covers those 5 points. And in there, then, we're looking for you to write an assignment. So here you've got some tips on how to write the assignment, you know, looking at the structure, the layout, the critical thinking, So that's how you start your assignment. And then your essay question, maybe your essay question's on the back page. Let me just have a look. There's me just talk about myself. So if we start the assignment, that's not very helpful. The assignment doesn't show. So what I will do, give me just 2 seconds and I'm going to sort that out because I can't talk about the assignment if the assignment's not there. Bear with me, bear with me. Okay, apologies for that, but this is why we go through it to make sure everything's working so you don't get the hiccups. Good. Okay, so here you can now see the essay question. It was hidden. So it's 500 words plus or minus 10%. In the context of education and training, critically examine the following key aspects. So you can use these. What I would do here, I would have a little introduction saying the aim of this essay is to analyse my own role, summarise key legislation, analyse boundaries, and describe points of referral. Nice and short. Because remember, we've only got 500 words. You've got 4 outcomes. So these become mini headers. So just use those as mini headers if you want. Just very clear that you've answered them. So when we look at 1.1, analyse own roles and responsibilities, there I've given you a little thing what to do. So discuss the importance of understanding your roles, including planning, delivery, and assessment. So straight away, just go in with a theorist. You know, Anne Gravel suggests that teaching and learning is. Great. You've gone in, you've got that mark because you've talked about a theorist. It's not, I think I should be doing this, or in my place of work, I should be doing this. That's a level 3 answer. A level 5 answer, Anne Gravel suggests that, or, you know, whoever it is suggests that. Great. Summarise key aspects of legislations. Therefore, it goes on, explore how these legal and ethical considerations impact your practice. So The subject matter that I teach is health and social care or digital skills. Things to consider here will be data handling, GDPR, consent, whatever it is, just because it's only asking for a summary. So you could just say GDPR legislation is the requirements are Ofsted expect us to, or you might want to go one better. You could say the Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO that regulate data suggests that. So start off with your theory, start off with your argument point, or your strong piece of evidence, and then just expand on that. Analyze the relationship and boundaries between the role of teaching and other professionals. So you, again, find a piece of research, just find something when you go in and have a little look. Because it says, consider the interaction between education leaders and support staff and stakeholders. So here, just find something, or it may just be Stephen suggested that. I mean, you shouldn't really be quoting me as a teacher, but I have said that working together provides better outcomes for individuals, and that's based upon my professional opinions. So you could say within the teaching material, it says this, or online, it says that. But find a piece of, do try and find a theorist. I don't think NCFE will really class me as a non-biased source of information. Consider, yes, we've done that one. Describe the points of referrals. So again, here, the Education Spectrum Framework says that. So you need to read the Education Spectrum Framework because it's the first couple of pages. I'm sure it's off the top of my head. First couple of pages, when you read that, it talks about SEN. It talks about or additional adult learning needs, recognising individual people. So there, off the back of that, you have shown that you have read the Education Spectrum Framework, and you are able to say, within our organisation, we do the following. Great. So it's not a difficult first piece work. You've only got 500 words to do here. It's just about, have you done the right background reading to answer this question? So number one, look at a teaching and learning theory models, probably Angravel. It's in that stuff that I've sent you, right? I've given you her link. You can have a look at that. If you bought the book, you'll see it in the book. So in the link that I've given you for the book, you could suggest them. I think it's Hannah. I've read so many books now, but have a look at what Hannah says in her book. She'll have something to say, I'm sure. Or was it Susan? Could be Susan. Don't quote me on that. Have a look in the link above where I've given you the book. Summarises key aspects of legislation, ethical requirements. Our code of practice, skills for care code of practice suggests. Society of Education Training's code of practice suggests. So just look at, unless you have read it, you're not going to be able to say it. So you need to read a code of practice. Analyze the relationship and boundaries between. So look for a piece of work there. Now, ultimately, if you struggle to find something, so let's just say I'm going to take this, right? And we go up here, we go to Google Scholar. And we pop that in there. There we go. Now, it needs to be contemporary. It needs to be in the last 5 years, but if we do 2023, we've still got 17,500 results. And now we just need to go through and have a look at a piece of evidence that supports your arguments. So we've get rid of that and try again. So yeah, that one might be interesting. Oh, Taylor and Francis is a great source of literature. So we know that would be a good piece of evidence there. So have a look. There we go. There's lots of different things on there. Like I said, you've got nearly 18,000 to pick from. That one could be interesting. Teacher stress in the COVID pandemic. But again, just find something. Find something. If you're struggling, maybe you could use your friend ChatGPT. So if you use your AI technology, you can put that in there. Find a reference. Right, good. So look, it's giving you the answer. Not suggesting at all to cheat because plagiarism is a problem. Can't plagiarize. But what you can do is you can use ChatGPT to help find sources of evidence. So again here, look, you've got a reference there. You could go away and read that. So it doesn't take long to find a source of evidence. And you can use that. Now, remember, there is a real problem that we face in education at the moment, and that is around the validity of work. So if you copy something, just to show you, so if you copy something and you go, let's just give you an example. Was this written by AI? I'm sure you all know this. So we can put work through check. AI detected. And actually you can see it thinks all of it is. So that's single plagiarism. The person's gone in, they've copied that directly from AI. So yes, it is absolutely a fantastic, great answer. It's probably one of the best answers I've seen. But ultimately, it's copied. Single plagiarism. What we have to be now careful for is a process called double plagiarism. So if we go to another AI source and we pop the answer in here, so Qualbot, and we put the, we take that and we put that into here, and then the learner goes, oh, let's write that as an academic piece, and we get them to paraphrase. Okay, what I'll do, it's because I'm not logged into my account. Actually, I can log into my account. Because this is useful for you to see how double plagiarism works. No, I don't want that. I don't want that. I want you to log in. What's that one? Because I am a premium. That should work. Okay, what we'll do, we'll just get rid of wherever the word count. It doesn't like, we've done too many words. Bear with me, everyone. Bear with me. It gets painful to watch after a while. Right. So we've got our AI texts. Okay. What's not going to let me do academic? Fine. We go to double page. So what we've done, we've now got AI to rewrite it for us. So that's now been rewritten. If we now go back to can't pick up it. So the AI detectors can't pick up double plagiarism. It's too much. It's too sophisticated. It can pick up one set of copying, but it can't pick up the second. So just bear in mind that whenever you read learners' work, if it sounds too brilliant, has it been double plagiarismed? And the only way you're going to know that is just by asking the learner. So don't be offended if I ever come back to you and go, this is an amazing piece of work. Can you just tell me, what did you mean by? And I'll give you an example of what happened to me not that long ago. So I'm doing my ACP, Advanced Clinical Practitioner training, and I'm on my second master's doing that. And I wrote a piece of work. I used technology to help. So I used Grammarly to help structure my essays and write things, because again, I need to know that I know it, because it's ultimately I'm playing with people's lives. And it came back that they felt that AI had been used. And I said, you know, and again, I was honest. I said, yes, I have used AI. I use Grammarly because I'm dyslexic. It's a tool that I use to help me structure my assignments. They said, well, look, would you mind talking to us about your assignment? Now, all that happened in that interview, for academic assurance, for validity, authenticity, they picked 4 things in the assignment, 4 really difficult things that I wrote about. And because obviously I researched and read it, I could easily answer it. And actually, if anything, I over-answered it. And she was just like, yeah, okay, you can stop now, Steve. But what's important with that is I understood the content. I understood what was in there, and I was able to justify my answers. So what I'm saying to you is, if you use AI for referencing, that's fine. I will spot AI, because I'm a massive fan of AI. I will spot AI if you just cut and paste this. What I'm saying to you is, if you go to double plagiarism, yes, by all means, you are making it much, 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 much more difficult for me, because the software's not going to pick it up. However, if I read it and I think, you definitely sound amazing here, I'm going to question you on some of it. So I will then go, in my feedback, I will probably go, look, what did you mean by that? Can you explain that a bit more? That's not me saying I think you've copied. That's not me saying I think you're cheating. That's me just going for validity purposes. I just need to make sure, because obviously when the EQA comes in, they're going to be looking at me going, what plagiarism checks have you done? So be mindful of that. So easy to find a reference, easy to find the answer. Just be mindful that whatever you write, I'm going to be checking there. So, and then helpful tips for writing at level 5, obviously understand the requirements. You know what the requirements are. I've put it there. I'm telling you what I want you to do. You can't really get this wrong. It's 500 words. You've got 4 outcomes, 50 words introductions, 100 words each, 50 words summary. Can't get that wrong, right? Helpful writing tips at level 5. Just know your background, know what you write about, plan it, have a clear structure, use an evidence-based style, make sure you've got that academic referencing in there. And the reason we're making you do the small assignments first, because we want to get that style right before you move forward on to the others. Okay, wonderful. So that's Unit 1, or Learning Outcome 1 done. Let's now move on to Learning Outcome 2. Look, obviously, I've given you an example as well. And that example is AI generated. I'm not going to lie to you. But it's an example of how it should look. Now, what doesn't count in the 500 words is your reference list. So don't worry about your reference list. And the rule of thumb with referencing, for every 100 words, you should have at least a reference. Roughly 100, one reference. Good. Okay, so let's soldier on. Be able to use initial diagnostic assessments in line with agreed learning roles. So here, it's not difficult, is it? You use diagnostic tools. You know what they are. You had to do one for English, one for maths, and one for your digital skills. So just talk about them, know where they came from, look at how you're going to use them. So once you've got them, what are you doing with it is the main question. So if you have used a diagnostic tool and you can see that that person has a weakness in a particular area, how are you going to build that up? And remember, obviously, you're probably not screening for digital skills. Start screening for digital skills, because ultimately that gives you a really good area within Ofsted, social responsibility, going over and above what you're meant to be doing, to bridging gaps and improving outcomes. So just be mindful about that. But remember, initial assessments, diagnostic assessments aren't a be all and end all. What we want from them is how you're interpreting them and what are you going to do with that information. So you're going to take that diagnostic information, you're going to pop it in your IAG and you're going to say, look, I can see here you do really well in, let's say, application and number. Great, that'll come in really handy when we do X, Y, Z. However, I can see here you're not so strong. So let's work on trying to build some of that up. Because even if they've got their functional skills, we're still meant to be embedding minimum core. So your minimum core is English, maths, and digital. Regardless, as a teacher, you are meant to embed minimum core across everything. So this isn't about functional skills. Get rid of functional skills. I don't even like the word functional skills. Get rid of it. You're doing minimum core anyway. It's just by default that that's your functional skills covered. So just think about using this and your minimum core. And when you think about your classrooms and your teaching learning, your materials, resources, think about how you can use those diagnostic tools to improve the quality of the teaching learning. So, excuse me, explain why it's important to identify and meet individual needs of the learners. You don't need this slide on here. We already know it. It's going to boost their confidence, the self-esteem. It's going to help you teach. It's going to help them learn. It builds confidence. You're able to foster better relationships. They'll be able to focus in class. It's all of the given stuff that you all know. So the question is, we know it's important, but what we're doing really is the bare minimums in the screening process. And in the screening process, we say to somebody, here's your BKSB or whatever you're doing as your initial diagnostics. And then off the back of that, that's it. What we're not doing is doing a deeper dive around those neurodivergence learning requirements. And it's not just, do you have a neurodivergent? It could be things around their mental health. So are you in a good place to learn? Oh, I've got a lot going on. I'm getting married next week. I'm adopting a child. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Does it sound like you're in a good place to learn at the moment? Is this going to be another tipping point? Is this going to be a barrier there? No, I really need to do it. Great. Okay, well, what support can I give you? So that's identifying the needs of the learner. Identifying the needs of the learner, I don't mind if you want to quote Maslow here. I just don't mind. I'm not a massive Maslow fan, but he has a point, right? If we haven't got food, warmth, and accommodation or Wi-Fi, which is the first point on there now, we're a blob on the floor. So making sure that your teaching and learning meets Maslow's theory. If you meet Maslow's theory, you will be a great teacher. It just goes hand in hand. So bear that in mind. So analysing the role of the initial and diagnostic assessments and agreed learning. So when you analyse the roles of diagnostic and assessments and agreed learning goals, we need you to do some kind of comparison. We need you to look at more than just one methodology. So it isn't just, look, we use BKSB, that's it. Well, who made BKSB the gods? The skills forward. There are other assessment tools out there. So it is about the case of looking at different diagnostic tools to meet different things. There are diagnostic tools out there for ADHD. There's diagnostic tools out there for ASD. There's diagnostic tools out there for dyslexia. There's diagnostic tools out there for depression and basic mental health stuff. It isn't just one thing. And you can have a bank of diagnostic tools, and you're not diagnosing here, people. That's not what we're asking you to do as teachers. We're asking you to do some screening to make sure you're able to meet the needs of that individual. And around information, advice, and guidance, if you're doing IAG properly, this is where it sits in its own. Because if you know that that person has a lot going on, or is in the middle of a relationship breakup, or is moving home, or is doing all those stuff, they're not going to be in the frame of learning. So just bear that in mind. So equally, when you analyze the diagnostic tools and you look at those, what are you hoping to get out of them? You know, what is it they're doing? Are you able then to set those realistic goals? Can you tailor those learning needs? What's the involvement of that learner? Did they understand the process that they're going through? Does it foster a better accountability? Does it encourage their reflection? And ultimately, we go back to this fishing rod thing, don't we? Or the fish. We're not trying to give them a fish to feed them. We're giving them a fishing rod to promote their independence. These are adult learners. We're trying to say to them, look, digital skills, you've gone on, you've done this, it's identified your gaps, you're an adult learner, I shouldn't need to hold your hand here to do this. Part of being a learner, especially at level 3 and above, is this ability to float yourself and understand what's going on. And they make the best learners for Ofsted, because when we think about learner behaviour, what would sound better to an Ofsted inspector? Oh, yeah, I did my initial assessments with my tutor. They gave me an IAG session, and from that, I was able to clearly see what I needed to improve on, and, you know, I did this. Great. Rather than, yeah, I did my BKSB, and then I had to attend to class. So think about your journeys. You know, even go back, review your flowcharts, review your strategies. It's great having initial diagnostic assessment tools, but what is the outcome of those tools? What are you hoping for them to achieve? Again, other things that you'll see there. Survey. So again, I made you do your VARC survey. Great. It gives me an idea about the type of learner you are. But what are you doing with that information? Are you giving feedback back to the learner? Are you saying, look, actually, I can see this is the type of learner you are. Is that right? IAG. Self-assessment, as we've already talked about. Pre-course tests. So again, other diagnostic tools, pre-course tests, great. Nobody should be going in for an exam without doing a mock. Observations, again, great for diagnostics or initial assessments. I can see what's going on. When I interview a learner for the first time, arguably, it's an interview, but I'm also observing their behaviour. I'm looking at how they're interacting. I'm just looking at, did they turn up on time? Do they look presentable? Are they acting and behaving as a learner? And you can go and download this as well, which I think is great. So there are behaviours in which Ofsted expect people to behave as a student. And the behaviours you're looking for are you organised and ready? Have you got a bag? Do you have pen and paper or whatever, or a recording device to record the lesson? Because if you haven't, you're not a genuine learner, are you? You're not here to learn. You're just here because you're here. And that needs to be knocked on straight away. So lots of other things there to have a look at and to go through. Recording learners and achieving their goals. So again, how you record and document is entirely up to you. There's lots of different e-portfolio systems out there. E-portfolio systems are great for holding lots of paperwork, lots of evidence. VLEs, such as this, virtual learning environments, are great for guiding people through stuff. So depending on what you're using your systems for. Obviously, the e-portfolios generally have more structured templates built in them, or alternatively, you may be reviewing your own paperwork. But here, recording learners' individuals' goals, those that have been in the job long enough will remember ILPs, individual learning plans. I don't think they ever really worked, if I'm going to be honest with you. They just became more paperwork for the assessor. They were meant to be this tool that was used between the learner, the tutor, and everyone else. And actually, I think they just become an admin burden rather than anything else. So what really is helpful is quarterly reviews done well. What is helpful is tracking monthly progress. What is helpful is IAG. Creating wonderful big tools that look amazing, but ultimately just set you up to fail isn't helpful. So just look at your paperwork within your organisation. And when you're looking at that paperwork, go back to the education spectrum framework and go, does it have purpose? What's its meaning? Are we doubling this up? Are we making unnecessary work? If we are tracking progress on a monthly and quarterly basis, why are we then transferring it into an ILP when all of the systems track ILPs, you know? And I think ILPs had a place in portfolios before we went electronic. because they were, in essence, your summary of everything in the portfolio, right? But your e-portfolio is doing all of this now. Systems track progress. We don't need a piece of paperwork doing that. So just look at the purpose of that. So learner records, look at your documentation, make sure it's fit for purpose, make sure you understand it. Just don't have it too much. And go through each of those things to make sure they're fit for purpose and they're working. Good. So task 2 then, be able to use initial diagnostics and assessments with agreed learners. So here you need to discuss the significance of individualized learning, explore the importance of identifying and meeting learners' needs, the role of initial assessments for those needs, and agreeing the goals of the process. Now, again here, ideally, you want to try and get that into 500 words. This is just an example, just giving you, we're dropping that support off. I'm not saying now it's this, this, and this. The word count has dropped off because we don't have to word count. It is about just meeting the outcomes, but in Unit 1, we're kind of giving you that idea of how you can do this. So that's just there. And again, all you're going to do is pop your feedback in there. Good. We're going to start. So learning outcome 3, I think we will do next week because I've been going for quite some time now. So by next week, I'd like you to have learning outcomes 1 and 2 done. And then next week, we're going to be looking at how we plan inclusive teaching and learning, which is great because that's the fun bit. That's where it becomes all exciting. And we will also cover creating a safe, inclusive learning environment. And the reason we're just going to take a bit more time on this unit than other units is because all of the other units go back to this. So, for example, developing teacher and learning resources clearly is an extension of 2 and 3. 3 and 4. Learning outcomes 3 and 4 there. So, as we just said, devices. Hang on, no. Developing, yeah. So being able to develop inclusive teaching and learning. So here, look, devise a scheme of work in accordance with your internal and external requirements. Well, you can't really do a scheme of work unless you're understanding, developing, and teaching and learning. So, Unit 1 is your starting block for all of the other units. So we'll just spend a little bit more time on that. Great. Well, hopefully you found that session useful. Nothing too strenuous in there. And I will see you all next week. And I can't wait to start marking some of your work. Take care for now. Bye, everyone.